Hi, this is the tutorial that covers experiments. So to start, we're going to take a look at two research questions that we could use a statistical study to help us answer. Question number one, are women more likely than men to support Democratic candidates? And question two, does a new interactive computer program improve the reading ability of kindergarten students? So really, to answer both of those questions, we're going to need some data. So the question is how would we collect data to help answer each question? So let's just talk a little bit about how we would go about conducting our study to get data in both cases. So in question number one, what I would need is I'd need a sample of men and I'd need a sample of women. Then really I just need to survey them. I would ask men, or I'd ask the group of women, are you likely to support Democratic candidates in the next election? Yes or no? I record their responses, and then I do the same thing for men. I would figure out then what proportion of women support Democratic candidates, what proportion of men support Democratic candidates, and then this question will be pretty easy to answer. So that's how I'd go about collecting data for question one. Question two is going to be, we're going to have to collect data in a little different way. What I would need to do first is I would need to go into a kindergarten classroom. And the first thing I would do is start by giving all of the kindergartners a pretest. So I'd start with that pretest, and then what I would need to do is I'd need to randomly split the classroom into two groups. Okay, and this split should be done randomly, and I would need to then teach one group reading using just the traditional means. So however that school generally teaches reading, I'd go about teaching, or the teachers would go about teaching this group in the traditional manner, and the second group would be the ones using the computer instructions, so the interactive computer program. So once I have them split up, then they would be exposed to each type of instruction, or this group would be only taught using traditional instruction, this group would only be taught using computer instruction, and after a certain amount then we would need to give them each a post-test. Then what we could do is we could compare each group's post-test scores to the pre-test scores. Okay, if the traditional group had a bigger change from post-test to pre-test than the traditional group would end up being more effective. If the computer group's post-test minus the pre-test scores were bigger, then we could say yes to this question. Yes, it does seem that it improves the reading ability of the students. So both of these are considered statistical studies, but only one of them is what we call an experiment. So an experiment is a study that deliberately imposes some treatment, or what's called a placebo treatment, on individuals in order to observe their responses. So we need to deliberately impose a treatment. So which of the two research questions could be answered using an experiment? And that's going to be question two. So question two could be answered using an experiment because we actually imposed a treatment. We imposed either the traditional instruction treatment or the computer treatment in order to figure out which one has a bigger effect on the reading ability. So an experiment is a good way to gauge the effect of an intervention. So our intervention here was the type of reading instruction. We thought that would be important to the response, which was the reading ability. So if the experiment is well designed, it is a good way to gauge the effect of that intervention. So when our goal is to understand a cause and effect relationship, we can conduct an experiment. Okay, an observational study, something different than an experiment, cannot be used to gauge the effect of cause and effect, but an experiment can. Okay, now a couple quick things about an experiment. If we're going back to that research question number two, the kindergarten students are called participants in the experiment. So generally, if they're humans, they're going to be called participants, whereas animals or things that are part of an experiment are called either subjects or experimental units. Sometimes people are referred to as experimental units, but generally people are participants, and then anything else is usually a subject or an experiment. And the last thing about experiments is that because you are able to gauge a cause and effect relationship with an experiment, it's very important that your experiment is well designed. So designing an experiment is a different subject on its own, but this is just your basic overview of what an experiment is. So thanks for watching.